The action of today's manhwa begins high in the skies everywhere warriors of the Empire. Next we see that all these warriors and strange creatures are accompanying someone. How can you use rare and expensive animals as mounts? A crowd of people understand that inside the caravan, there is an incredible Sigma from whom they want children. Before us is Liu Wuchen. He is accompanied by the best guards. He is His Imperial Highness himself. After he entered the fantasy world, he became the prince of an immortal dynasty of supreme power. After this prince arrives here, we observe a large number of guards. This prince guy not only has a high status, but also a Dao bone, a talent bestowed by heaven. In addition, he has an extraordinarily beautiful face. He is at the top of this fantasy world. Moreover, our main character has a huge amount of knowledge from his previous life. According to this knowledge, this guy should have become at least the main hero of this fantasy world. But everything developed differently after his mother dug up the Tao bone artifact abandoned in the desert. Despite this seemingly good luck, the father of our main character was forced to die after the discovery. Judging by the guy's reaction, he was clearly unhappy with the fact that his father managed to get an immortal body. Next, we watch how the father of our main character is dramatically in the arms of his son. But in truth, everything was a little wrong, because the fall of this guy's family, the death of relatives, was his fault. After reading this plot, this guy throws the script realizing that he looks like a villain who will not survive 3 episodes. But he's still going to just live without worrying about whether he'll live long or not. After all, one way or another, even if the sky falls on his head, he has him whom he can hold on to. Suddenly he hears from him that these main characters are illegitimate children of the heavenly Tao, and everyone resists the will of heaven. The guy moves into the system and a waifu appears in front of him. She tells him that when these two grow up, he will die. She continues saying that although she is beautiful, he should not fall in love with her. How can a phoenix and a pheasant come together? The guy replies that, in fact, whatever happens, it cannot be avoided. Despite the mediocrity, the face of the system is not bad. Next, the prince asks the system how he can change his fate against the will of heaven. He is going to do it. In response to this, the system grins, wondering if he wants to change his fate because he can become a villain. As long as the villain is strong enough, the main character is nothing more than an appetizer. A successful villain must be a Sigma. After the guy hears that he has already been registered as a powerful villain surrounded by women, he was surprised. Apparently our main hero was not attracted to this plot at all. He immediately replied that he was against it. In the modern world, Liu Wuchen is a disciple of the 5-element sect who was born under the red flag. He was raised in the spirit of socialism, and strived to be a good person who always helps people. The mentor sister believed that the boy would perform noble deeds and be fair in the future. After that, this guy's incentive was quite simple. He was just going to help his sister mentor. But who would have thought that, because of a fatal mistake, he would bring a wolf into his own home and cause harm to his native sect? Immediately after this happened, real chaos occurred and everything was mired in fire, and my sister disappeared. After our main character had to endure this terrible tragedy due to a fatal mistake, something changed. Clenching his fist tightly while standing in front of the waifu system that called him a villain, he prepared to answer. Gathering his strength and showing the waifu a cheerful gesture, he declared that he would die but would not become a villain. The system feels sorry for the guy because if he had coped with the task, then perhaps he would have returned his sister. This pink system was clearly going to brainwash our main character with its blackmail. After the guy heard that he could get his sister back, he changed his mind. The guy's mood changed and he stated that as long as he could come back, he would do anything. After the guy changed his mind, this girl was happy that the guy got caught. Approaching him, she warned him that the first time might be a little painful. Before us is the system window, the guy's name, position, and cultivation level 5th. Physique Bone Dao, life expectancy 24 hours, villain points 100, for the store you need 3,000. The system reminded the guy that if he does not score the required number of villain points, he will die. The guy was clearly shocked after being presented with such a sad fact. However, his new system didn't care because the countdown to his death had already begun. Even while he was just standing in this space, these seconds continued to pass, bringing his death closer. The prince immediately noticed this countdown counter that would constantly catch his eye. The guy was beside himself because this villain system was so merciless to him. He realized that the owners of the villainous system have a very hard time because it's a hardcore mod. Despite the fact that the guy was born unusual and surpassed the laity, he is not yet a competent villain. The system continued by saying that the real villain must hunt down and kill the main hero and take over his chi. Also, a real villain must step on dragons and phoenixes, making people tremble in fear. Moreover, a real villain must be so fierce that the ancestors of Taoists would kneel before him. While the guy listened to this whole guide on how to be a villain, his timer over his head continued to go. He has read a lot of articles on the internet and he knows these evil schemes. They are just arrogant idiots, so he can handle it. Immediately after the guy said this girl snapped her fingers because the guy hit the nail on the head. She informed him that he was able to grasp the essence, and if he is not a villain, he will not be able to collect a single point. But if he is terrible and arrogant enough according to all the canons of a villain, then he will receive villain points. But if the prince does the opposite, then these villain points will be deducted from him double. The guy was surprised by this news, because he already dies quite quickly. This is already more like a system of death. Meanwhile, the guy's villainous system has detected fluctuations. Lin Feng's Child of Fate interferes with the plot. Plot progress is 0.01%. The unlucky villain has 0.01% of villain points, and the Child of Fate has 99.9 fate points. The system will warn the guy that it has been discovered that the Child of Fate, Lin Feng, has received points of resistance to the will of heaven. After the guy heard about the danger of life, he realized that he would not live more than a day, and this guy dares to threaten him. Before the prince, there is a notification that he can interfere in the process by receiving a rare treasure and gold. The reward was worthy of a Child of Fate. 1,000 glory points and the blessing of the heavenly Tao is a lot. Our main hero continued to look at the system window that was hanging in front of him right now. The prince found out that in the photo there is Lin Feng. It looks like he killed his old man, and if he allows him to level up, he will die. After the guy realizes that he simply cannot allow this guy to pump, he decides to intervene. At this moment, we are abruptly transported to a location called the Holy Land of Tian. Before us is Mu Yao Chen. She is a celestial being located in Tianshui. Seeing a strange flash that overtook their dome, she tells her father that some of them refuse to talk. Apparently, we are now watching the father of this magnificent girl. He sits majestically on the throne. He says that the ancestor did not have time to rest when Jin Dao and Chen Shan attacked them. They are hoping for a miracle. At the moment, we have old man Mu Shan in front of us. He is the wisest ruler of these lands. While pouring tea, the waifu reports that the timing has coincided well. All news must be reported to the emperor. The old man replied that if they can contact his highness, then no one will be afraid of the Holy Land. The girl replies that, however, the Holy Land has been under siege for 5 days and most of the resources have been plundered. After the old man hears about the treasure, he replies that there is still one here. The old man tells his daughter that she is the first celestial woman in the state. Many sons of the families of the Holy Land are in love with her. This old man is suggesting that the girl can take advantage of this and ask for help. In response to this, the girl asks the old man if he is asking her to sacrifice herself. Next, the old man gloomily replies that this is their only hope for their lands of the Holy Land of Tianshui. Judging by the reaction of this girl after she hears this, she is clearly in no hurry to agree with her father. She tells her father that she has already sent a message to her brother, Mentor Lin Feng, so it's not all bad. Moreover, he is gifted, his chi is incredible, and now he has inherited the divine tablet, so you have to wait for him. Meanwhile, we watch as someone very quickly approaches these two at full speed. The old man replies that Lin Feng is truly unique, but will he be able to influence the war on the Holy Land all alone? The girl answers her father that in such matters, you need to forgive your own daughter's incompetence. The old man adds that the barrier will last no more than 2 days. Is the girl really going to just wait and watch? Meanwhile, the forecast of this wise old man does not come true because the dome, which was supposed to stand for 2 more days, is cracking. After this happens, this wise old man immediately senses it with the help of his spider sense. However, this old man still has gunpowder in his flasks, so he immediately takes out his sword to meet the enemy. Taking a fighting stance, the old man tells his daughter that if she does not agree, he intends to die in front of her eyes. Tears well up in the girl's eyes, and she asks her father to just give her time to think about it. The old man tells his daughter that there is nothing to think about here. In another 2 hours, he himself will do everything for the elders to escort her. Meanwhile, a notification appears in front of our main character about the start of a side quest to obtain a slave. Moreover, some fateful purple guy was discovered, clearly not happy with the extra hassle. This old man immediately gets into a fight with someone who is in the late stage of the Obtalea kingdom. The sage tries to convince him that there is enmity between them, but they raise troops against them, thinking that their lands were weak. The attacker asked the grandfather not to pretend. The ancestor of the Holy Land of Tianshui died. There are no more masters in the Holy Land. Next, we watch as active fights continue between those who fight and defend this Holy Land. Apparently, this younger guy will find the strength to start pushing this sage who just wants to protect the lands. He heard that the Tianshui celestial being is not only amazingly beautiful, but also has an incredible body, so he will definitely taste. The old man immediately called this guy an impudent man because he couldn't commit outrage while on his holy land of Tianshui. Swinging his hand for the next time, this man said that for the sake of his daughter's face, he was ready to personally send him to rebirth early. The sage was in complete shock because all this was the nonsense of a crazy scoundrel. Today he intended to teach him a lesson. The attacker's body is really strong, but 2 realms below him, and yet he is able to hold it back for so long. Next we continue as these two continue to confront each other on the wounds, despite a noticeable difference in strength. But suddenly something unexpected happens. We watch as a caravan that was already familiar to us appears in the sky from the clouds. A little more, and we see in front of us those incredibly rare animals that were used as transport for the carriage. After we move a little inside this carriage, we see that sitting in it is someone who clearly knows his worth. The daughter of the owner of these lands immediately turns her attention to this carriage. She wonders why he is heading to their land. Even the attacker of these lands stops fighting to wonder what this major is doing here. Immediately after this young master lands on these lands, All the red-robed warriors kneel before him. Next, we see that this person is our main character. Everyone begins to greet him because he is Imperial Highness. The villain system immediately decides to reward the guy for appearing confidently and majestically. This corresponds to the character of the villain. While the guy was able to get as many as 500 villain points, one of the warriors in red robes told the others to leave because Highness wants to enter. Despite the fact that our main character at this moment feels like an edit, he continues to put on a majestic appearance of a tough Sigma. After hearing the orders, our main character continued to walk through these holy lands, telling these warriors to get up from the ground. Our main character's system immediately hits him over the head, telling him that he is no good and needs to pick up his drool. The guy was unhappy that his system was ruining his perfect villain hairstyle. He wondered why the system was so small. Waifu replies that this is all because he is a worthless villain, so he was forced to go into energy saving mode because of this. The prince could not help but answer that despite such a small size, this girl talks a lot and calls him worthless. The girl replies that it's hard to meet Purple Chi once in 1,000 years, and if she's faceless, it means she exists like at least 2. Therefore, our main character's system told him to better reflect on his insignificant life and get out of here to complete the task. This psychopath, meanwhile, reports that this holy land will be broken in 2 days. He reports that the prince can just watch from the side. Having heard this question, our main character asks the system whether he, being a villain, should beat this guy right now. The system tells the guy that this sage is at a late stage of cultivation, so that our main character will not be able to defeat him in life. In this world, the main cultivation path is divided into 12 stages, and our main hero is still below this guy. Due to the fact that he is already half a kingdom shorter than this guy, and also his Dao bone is damaged, so in his eyes he is just mere trash. Our main character was beside himself because other systems at the beginning of work present spiritual treasures, pills of immortality, but his system only mocks. Continuing to stomp on the system notification, this guy says that as a villain he is only being tortured, and even this insignificant NPC dares to snap at him. The system asked our main character, who told him that he doesn't have all the advantages. The fact is that this is all for noobs. The system offers the guy a pouch that will help him borrow the power of the immortal light of the 9 spheres to help him rebuild his body. The guy immediately uses this thing to tell the system that it could get this thing earlier and not wait for him to go on strike. Meanwhile, we continue to watch our main character slowly open this bag that should help him. Immediately after the bag is opened, our main character is enveloped by a mysterious force that allows him to rebuild his own body for a while. One of the effects of this item was to eliminate hidden diseases and restore the body. The prince managed to restore his Dao bones and immortal powers. A few moments pass and the healing process of our protagonist is completed, and now his body has finished forming completely. The guy simply couldn't enjoy this mind-blowing feeling of pleasure from increasing the level in a fantasy level. It's not bad at all. The process is completed, and now the limitation of strength has disappeared and this guy's body is filled with strength, if before his Dao bone was like a dusty pearl. Now the dust has disappeared, and the barrier between his body and the Dao bone has completely disappeared. Now the dust has disappeared, and the barrier between his body and the Dao bone has completely disappeared. The Dao bone has completely merged with his body. A constant stream of spiritual energy surged through his body, and his cultivation level instantly reached the late stage of the monastery realm, which is already more serious. Our main hero was consumed by strange sensations that he had never experienced before, as if he had become the god of life and death at the same time. This guy who previously attacked the lands was surprised once his Jindao Taoist body was activated. It would be difficult to cancel. It would be bad if it harmed the head. Meanwhile, after our main character acquired new powerful powers, he conjured a magic projectile and aimed it at this loser. This man in a red robe was shocked by such an unexpected turn of events. A magic missile knocked him down. After our main character finished dealing with this loser, he simply told him that he was making too much noise and was disturbing him. This guy was still trying to move away from the attack of our main character. Lying on the ground after receiving the projectile, he was trying to understand why he received it. This guy immediately realized that this power cannot belong to someone who is at the earlier stage of the realm of the monastery, which means something is wrong. At this moment, the boy was thinking that the power of the Dao bone was so great that it was not surprising that his old man had to get one for him. Meanwhile, another sage in a red robe began to approach our main hero, after which he fell on one knee in front of him. He told the guy that the battlefield is now dirty and in disarray. He invites his highness to go into the house and just take a break from the long journey. Passing by this old man, our main character warned this old man to take better care of his dogs in the future. They should think before they bite. After our main character so strongly offended the dignity of one of the warriors from this clan, the defeated guy hit the ground saying that he did not agree. He continued by saying that this blow contained demonic chi energy. It was nothing more than a damaged Dao bone, so he must have used something. In response to this, the old man called this guy an idiot. He told him that if he wants to die right now, then he can do it alone and not involve others. The old man continued by saying that there was no treasure aura in our main hero's punch, so our main hero's Dao bone had already been restored. Then we watched as the people of this holy land of Tianshui came. There were a very large number of them. They didn't understand what just happened. For some reason, the sage of Jindao knelt down. Was it really the legendary interception of the initiative? Meanwhile, the owner of these lands rejoiced that the power of one palm was enough to kill that guy with the golden dagger, which means his land was saved. The old man immediately ordered the disciples to quickly inform everyone so that they could come and greet His Imperial Highness and let Yao Chen dress up properly. After a couple of moments, the course of events is interrupted, and we are transported to the already familiar temple of the Holy Land of Tianshui. Our main character is sitting on the throne. The old man with his students and disciples behind him greet the Imperial Highness who sits on the throne in front of them. This old man could not even think that the great emperor would not leave them without help. He was shocked that they were sent a person to restore justice. The guy was informed that Jindao and Chenshin want to completely destroy their holy land, so they ask him to restore justice for these holy lands. The guy thinks that if the aura of the great emperor's legacy had not been felt here, his old man would not have allowed him to be in this environment. After waiting a little more, the guy realized that this unreal special effect is simply impossible not to notice, and it catches your eye very much. Looking at the daughter of this old man, our main character clearly saw purple chi. The system reminded the guy that the possessor of purple chi is the main character of the plot. The attention of our main character was attracted by his face, body, and cold temperament. All this was worthy of the main character. The villain system reminds that luck levels of chi are divided into white, blue, purple, and gold. 90% of people have white. After the two accidentally met each other's gaze, the guy realized that, as expected, she has rare chi. But immediately after this waifu caught the gaze of our main hero, she suddenly turned away and looked to the side. After this girl deliberately turned to the side, she very quietly called our main character a womanizer. The father of this daughter, who was standing next to her, simply could not help but hear what his daughter said and not notice her reaction. Next, the old man introduces His Highness his daughter Mu Yao Chen. He adds that she has always admired His Highness, and she wanted advice. After we saw this girl's reaction, we clearly realized that 80% of what her father said was untrue. Looking at this misunderstanding, our main character, a genius with 200 IQ, understands that this Mu Shan is trying to sell him his daughter for the sake of fame. But he also feels that this Mu Yao doesn't really agree with this, so he shouldn't rush into it. He decides that he will ignore this waifu. Next, our main character decides that he is already tired, so he must do something about it because he can afford it. He puts his hand on his hip. Rising from his throne, our main character announces that this conversation is closed at this moment in accordance with his order, and they will talk about it next time. The old man immediately bowed to the guy, telling him that the palace had already been prepared, so all he had to do was just escort the villainous prince along. One of the maids tells another student of the sect that the wisest ruler has lost his mind and is trying to send his own daughter to a living hell. The second student answers the student that if His Highness really intervenes in the affairs of these holy lands, they will certainly be saved from attacks. Then we watch as the course of events abruptly stops and deep darkness already sets in on the street. Moreover, the location does not change and remains on these holy lands. Liu Wukan carefully examines his characteristics in data window. The system reports that the owner is changing his fate against the will of heaven without the approval of the heavenly Tao. But if our main character is still discovered by the heavenly Tao, he will be killed immediately, so he definitely needs to move to the next level. The guy gets very angry after he hears about some kind of heavenly Tao. He doesn't care if it is not indifferent to the children of fate. It does not give the villains a chance to live. All this will force our main character to go on the path of evil forever, because otherwise he will simply be dead, so he has no choice. All this will force our main character to go on the path of evil forever, because otherwise he will simply be dead, so he has no choice. The system adds informing our main character that each child of fate is the embodiment of the heavenly Tao, and if the owner kills more children of fate, then he will be able to eat the heavenly Tao. After the guy realizes that he still needs to save his life, he presses the apply button, but it seems that it's not so easy to go back and save his mentor. Our main hero is congratulated for successfully using the option. He receives a yellow rank life extension. This notification hangs in front of him. Our main character thought that by extending his life, he would be able to lie quietly and do nothing. But it turned out that this was just the beginning. Then he began to understand that it seemed that the task of capturing Mu Yao Chen, which was provided to him by the villain system, could no longer be postponed. At this moment, the course of events accelerates and evening comes. We see in front of us the same Mu Yao Chen that our main character needs to capture. Next, we see our main character who is inside the building. Apparently, he saw this girl and he has problems. Despite the fact that he is in a bad mood, someone also chose a very inopportune moment to visit him in his chambers. Next, the guy immediately runs to the front door in order to teach the Sly a lesson and see who he really is as quickly as possible. Immediately after our main character grabs the intruder, obvious doubts appear in his head because his hand feels something soft. After this incredibly awkward moment happens, this waifu immediately blushes because she was just grabbed by the prince in the cover of darkness. The girl was not at a loss despite her awkwardness and began to greet his Imperial Highness. Meanwhile, the guy realized that he was holding the beauty's body. After the guy realizes that in front of him is the celestial being herself, he immediately assumes that she certainly couldn't just pass by. This means that this girl has something to do with the guy. Meanwhile, the guy was thinking about the amazing body that this girl has. She's like a Korean model. Next, the girl bowed her head before the prince and said that she hoped that his highness would forgive her for daring to disturb him at such a late hour. Next, the celestial goddess immediately moved on to the main matter. She asked the prince to save the holy land of Tianshui on which they are now located. There are rumors that this girl is incredibly arrogant, and she clearly does not speak from the heart, so the guy realized that something was definitely wrong. Thinking, Sigma realized that in order to subjugate this girl into his hands, he would have to break her pride because she would greatly disturb him. After a great idea comes into the head of our main character, he begins to mentally apologize to this girl for what he will do. Next, we watch as the guy begins to sharply turn his back to this girl, after which he begins to follow to his wooden throne from IKEA. After he reaches his throne, he looks at this girl and asks her why on earth he should save their holy land. In response to this celestial woman told our main character that if his highness does this, then he will definitely be presented with spiritual treasures. After our main character heard what seemed like a lucrative offer that was quite difficult to refuse, he asked about the treasures in more detail. A couple of moments later, our main hero asked the celestial woman in front of him if they had 10,000-year-old materials. The girl answered no. Immediately after the girl answered, the guy again asked her if they had at least the weapons of the Emperor of the Heavenly Tao in these lands. The answer was no. Next, the guy asked this girl again if they had at least some precious arts from distant lands. Embarrassed and looking to the side, the girl answered no. Waifu further said that the Holy Land of Yatanshui has revered his highness as its lord for many generations, so this is also important. But apparently our main character was not at all impressed by this discovery. Then he leaned back towards his mug of tea to drink a little. The villain asked the girl if this was the sincere thoughts of their holy land of Tianshui. He asked the girl if it mattered that the tiny land revered him. At this moment, the celestial inhabitant of these lands realized that these lands for our main character are just an ant, which means she has only one way out. After the waifu runs out of arguments, she informs our main character that in return for her help, she can accompany our main character during a cardio workout at night. Apparently this offer attracted the guy, because Lu Wuchen lived 2 lives for 18 years and now spring has finally come to his street. Immediately after the guy thought about the profitability of this option, his villain system immediately called him an animal. Liu Wuchen understood that he had only one thing on his mind, and that was earning villain points, and a woman could only influence how fast he would draw his sword. Our main character answered this girl that if he asks a woman to train, then by his order alone, it is unknown how many Celestials will respond. The girl understood that there were rumors about this guy that he was arrogant and power-hungry, and extremely fond of beautiful women. But now he is completely calm as a Sigma. The Celestial even wondered if her charm ability had disappeared. She continued to try to understand what was wrong. Further, our main character added that he can still come to her aid if, of course, she wants him to make an effort to save the land. The girl replied saying that, if his highness agrees, she is ready to give everything. Wuchen replied that there is still no maid next to him, and the vacancy is open. After this, the celestial being was immediately surprised, because how could the work of a maid cost more than all the precious things that he had named just recently? This may all seem humiliating, but compared to her father's intentions, he left her with enough dignity that it's not so bad. Continuing to think about our protagonist's offer to become his personal maid, she wondered if he was just a good person who responded to help. Meanwhile, Wuchen continued telling the celestial dweller that if she does not want to become his maid, then they can simply forget the conversation and never remember it. But the celestial woman replied that if his highness promises to save their holy lands, then she is ready for anything. Just as she said quite recently. After the celestial goddess agreed to become a maid of our main character, the villain system of our main hero immediately notified him that he had received 2,000 villain points. The girl decided that this prince still lived in luxury and did not see anything, and gossip could not be trusted. The system added that this girl's feelings had changed and deviated from the plot. Immediately after our main hero realized how well everything had turned out, he was surprised by the fact that everything went very easily. After Wuchen got a personal maid, he told her that traveling today was very tiring, so his stomach was empty and lonely. Meanwhile, the villain system came out again to report that acquiring a celestial goddess with purple chi as a servant advanced his task by 30%. Immediately after our main character hinted that he was hungry, this celestial woman began to step back, saying that she would prepare snacks. The guy, meanwhile, asked the system why the hell he had 30 points of progress in the quest. He demanded a reasonable explanation, otherwise he would resort to cruelty. Our protagonist's tsundere system told him that Mu Yao Chen was only trying to save the Holy Land, and he was still far from completely subjugating it. But despite the fact that our main character has not yet fully completed his quest, this girl's system still informed him about the reward that he deserved. Our main character received some pathetic drop, He asked the system if it was trying to get rid of him with the help of one drop. He asked her if she considered him a beggar. Once again showing its essence as a tsundere, the system replied to Wushin that he doesn't know much about things, because he is the spirit of the ancestor of 10,000 dragons. Although in distant lands the cultivation and status of dragon beasts is very low, but the ancient dragon is a completely different matter. Due to the fact that the ancient dragon, born in the primordial chaos and having lived for many years, is the ancestor of 10,000 dragons, each drop contains frightening power. Our main character system continued by explaining to our main hero that just one drop of the spirit and blood of this dragon is capable of raising his level of self-development by 1 level. After our main character heard how powerful the drop in his hands was, he immediately wanted to try how powerful it was as quickly as possible. Without wasting a single extra minute, we watch as our gal hero begins to throw this drop of the dragon spirit straight into himself, which will increase his level. Immediately after this powerful drop of the dragon spirit enters the body of our main character, some kind of purple flame appears around him and envelops him. But it doesn't end with special effects alone. Raising his head up after taking a drop, our main hero sees before him the embodiment of the spirit of the dragon. But it doesn't end with special effects alone. Raising his head up after taking a drop, our main hero sees before him the embodiment of the spirit of the dragon. At this interesting moment, the course of events ends abruptly and we continue when the location changes to a place somewhere outside the palace, where 3 silhouettes are located. One of the students of these holy lands tells his master that the prince was very strong today, and it's all very difficult to call it an accident. The second disciple with the funny hair adds that he thinks that they could kidnap him first and make sure that they leave the state of the Great Tao. But in response to all these ambitious ideas of his students, the sage of these lands only asked his students to wait a little longer. If Yao Chen did not cope with the task, they would think. After a couple of moments of war, something unexpected happens. Everything around begins to shake sharply. The earth shakes and the mountains begin to shake as if they were from AliExpress. Then something similar to the end of the world happens in the sky. A lot of lightning of an unknown origin, orange in color, appears. Everything is very strange, quickly and unexpectedly. The disciples of this holy place immediately assume that this could be an enemy attack or an earthquake, and the sage is surprised that even the protective barrier is shaking. But after a couple of moments, this shockwave from this strange explosion or earthquake reaches these 3, and it even becomes difficult for them to stand on their feet. After a couple of moments, one of the students, looking at all this horror in front of him, understands that all this is caused by the fact that the prince is right now pumping himself up. The second one simply cannot believe it, because this power is incredibly terrifying. Is this guy really only in the realm of the heavenly abode? Because it seems that he is more powerful. At this moment, this sage of these lands clearly changes his opinion about this guy. He declares to his disciples that they are a righteous holy land, and they will not make any abductions. Even the new maid of our main character, who at that moment was bringing food to our main character, is very surprised because everything starts to shake. She wonders if this is the power of the dragon. At this moment, our main character is sitting in the lotus position, and there are flames around him. He understands that he was finally able to break into the realm of supernatural comprehension. After reaching the next level of power, our protagonist's nose rises higher than the skies because he realizes that an even more powerful force is now filling his body. After our main character made the transition with the help of a reward from his system, he realized that now he can be considered a real descendant of one of the dragons. The villain system notifies him that he is majestic and powerful, which corresponds to the canonical qualities of a villain. He receives plus 500 villain points. The guy never could have imagined that in the new era, he would now have such a villainous character. Moreover, he receives very tasty rewards for it. Wushin immediately opens his stats menu again. He occupies the same position, but now his power level is at the 6th realm of supernatural insight. Also now our main character has many new abilities like fist art, and now he has as many as 3,000 villain points, which means the store is unlocked. After the guy reads about the extra special physique, he is surprised. He is also attracted by some kind of divine ability in the form of a dragon's eye. The tsundere system answers the guy that the sacred body of the ancient dragon is formed from the power of the ancient dragon. When it is fully awakened, you can be reborn as an immortal. After Wukong realizes that he is able to be reborn from a drop of blood and gain immortality, he realizes that he can resist the heavenly Tao. The villain's tsundere system reminds our main character that his new sacred body of the ancient dragon is only 3% open, not to mention the confrontation. Wukong's tsundere system continues telling him that now the heavenly Tao can kill him with one of his fingers, so he shouldn't become arrogant ahead of time. In response to all this, the guy asks if the system can't just let him enjoy his new powers. She has a cute face, but she says disgusting things. But the mood immediately returns to the main hero after he remembers that the store is now unlocked for him, so he betrays the system to study it together. At this moment, our main character imagines that he is going to a real supermarket of Sigma goods in order to make a purchase as in the real world.